Hey everybody, welcome back to more of the worst Pokemon of every generation here on Wigs Gaming. Today we are moving forward into the Steel type, one of my personal favorite types, and it's not that common until later generations. So we'll see what Steel types we have to choose from as time goes on. I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll see. But if you have been enjoying the series, please make sure you let me know in the comments below, and please hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and make sure you subscribe if you're new. We're going to get fairy types out first thing tomorrow, same time. Now, let's go ahead with the Steel type, and as I expected with Generation 1, obviously Steel types did not exist, but they went back and they added Steel typing to Magnemite and Magneton, so we'll just throw Magnemite in there, and we'll move on to Generation 2 when we have some options. Now, Generation 2 actually has some really good Steel types, and I'll tell you something. I have something positive I can say about every single one of these. So Steel types kind of had a overall MO early on where when Pokemon put Steel types in the game, what they wanted to do in doing that was they wanted to make sure that they were defensive. They wanted to make them defensive Pokemon. Forretress is literally a defensive monster. If you can find a way to make sure that they don't have a fire move, he can get through anything. He can set up your spikes. He can set up your stealth rocks. I believe he even gets toxic spikes, and he'll even explode if you need him to. Really like him. Steelix redeemed Onix. Giving Onix the evolution into Steelix redeemed it. It made it better. It didn't make it perfect because it's still 4 times weak to fighting. Actually, isn't it part ground? It is part ground, actually. No, so it's not 4 times weak to fighting. So that actually helps a little bit. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Oh, nope. Nope. What did I do? Hold on. We good? Hold on. There we go. That's better. And so it's not perfect. Scizor is a perfect example. So Scyther was not a bad Pokemon, guys. Scyther is not and was not and will not be a bad Pokemon. I don't think I'll ever consider Scyther to be a bad Pokemon. But they took Scyther and they made him even better by giving him Steel typing, making him a little bit more defensive, giving him things like Bullet Punch, and made him super good. And Skarmory is one of my favorite Pokemon, period. It's very defensive. It fills your flying type need as well in an early enough point in most games. I really like Skarmory. I think, honestly, the worst Steel type is probably Steelix, but all of these choices are really good. That is not an easy decision for me to make. Generation 3. Wow. Listen, if you used a Mawile in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, what were you thinking? Mawile might be one of the worst Pokemon they've ever created. It's not because of its design. I think it's kind of creative, but at the same time, what is the purpose of this thing? What do you do with it? And it's funny, too, because the Pokemon Company and Nintendo and Game Freak, they knew how bad Mawile was. Then when Generation 6 came out, they gave it a Mega. They knew how bad it was, but they actively ignored that. They actively ignored how bad it was for a long time. And Mega Mawile is good. And they also gave it Fairy typing, okay? But it's just, how do you mess that up, man? How do you mess that up? How do you create a Pokemon this bad? This bad. I just don't know what they were thinking. No one used this. If you used this in your original playthrough of Ruby, Sapphire, or Emerald, not as a joke, not as a Nuzlocke where you're forced to use it, I mean in an actual real playthrough, if you use this thing in Ruby, Sapphire, or Emerald, if you did that, let me know in the comments. Because I have a pretty good feeling no one has ever bothered because of how bad this thing is. And even if they tried to use it, they probably got rid of it later on. Generation 4. This has some good choices and some bad choices. I've talked about Burmy 1.5 million times. I don't think I need to put Steel Burmy on here. I think what I realistically need to put on here, most likely, here has got to be Probopass. Again, no one asked for a Nosepass evolution, and you gave it a type that makes it even weaker to fighting. That makes it even weaker to fire. You really just made it worse and you didn't add any attack to it either. It just didn't seem like Probopass was designed. Obviously, the goal was to make a funny design, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't seem like it was designed to be anything other than just give people a laugh. It wasn't created to make Nosepass better much at all, because I personally don't know if it did. Really, I don't know if it did. Gen 5. Ooh. I've already hated on Durant like 4 times. I'm going to let Durant go. And honestly, I want to talk about... Excavalier. Excavalier is cool, but it really just lacked in the fact that it got a bad ability, and it didn't really get any overall enhancements from evolving. I thought it was pretty good in the sense that it was a lot better than what it evolved from, but Excavalier definitely needed a Mega Evolution. I think if they gave Excavalier a Mega Evolution, it would have been redeemed, but instead, this is just another one of those Pokemon that no one used, because why would they? Why would you bother to use this? It is a cool design, though. I'll give it credit for that. I just think they could have done more with it. Generation 6, we have a bunch of Megas. We have one of my favorite Pokemon ever made, and then we have a set of keys. So, first things first, okay? I want to talk about Aegislash. I love this thing, dude. This is the most unique ability ever with Stance Change. I love this thing. When I first found out about it, I had to catch a Hone Edge when I found it. I'm glad I found it and it worked out. Really cool typing of Ghost and Steel as well. Mega Lucario. Lucario is one of my favorite Pokemon. Guess what? Let's give it a Mega. Sounds good to me. Perfect. Mega Steelix. Mega Scizor. Mega Aggron. Mega Metagross. Then there's Mega Mawile. And I said before, Mawile was redeemed when they gave it a Mega Evolution and the Fairy typing. But Klefki is pretty good, man. Klefki is a pretty good Pokemon, okay? Klefki is a very good Pokemon. So is it still Mega Mawile? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. 100%. I know they redeemed Mawile. Mega Mawile is not bad. But when you look at my options on here, I personally think Mega Mawile is a lot worse than Klefki. Klefki is actually kind of a hidden OP. It really is. Generation 7. Another one of my favorite steel types is in this. It's Kartana. Now, here's the thing. As much as I think Alolan Dugtrio is bad, I can't say no to it. I love its design so much. But there's another thing on here, which I mentioned in another video that I actually liked, but it just isn't as good as... It just isn't as bad, or it isn't as good as the rest. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. And that is Togedemaru. Togedemaru is cool. I don't mind the Pokemon, but it just doesn't have what the rest of these have. We've got, obviously, Ultra Beasts. We've got, Necrozma in here. We've got all kinds of stuff in here. And then we have this. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've put every Pikachu clone in this now. I really think I have. So if that just means I hate Pikachu clones, then I do. But I think I've put them all in by now. So Generation 8. Wow. So what do I go with here? Is it really going to be Corviknight? It has to be. So I've talked about it before that I don't like using these Hisuian forms or any Gmax forms. I like to stick with raw Sword and Shield. Pokemon Sword and Shield. And so when I look at all of these options in here, it's either Corviknight or it's the elephant. I'm sorry, I forgot the elephant's name, but I've used one before. And I think it's Corviknight. Corviknight is, again, a Pokemon I really like. But I think I've done this twice now, right? Because there was it Flying type when I only had Corviknight to choose from? Yeah, and I had to use Rookidee. It is Corviknight. It has to be. Everything else in here is really good. And it hurts me to say this, but yeah, it's Corviknight. It really is. As much as I like the Pokemon. Gen 9... You guys were asking me in the comments, you were wondering how I felt about Vroom and Revroom. because I was commenting on another bad design. Well, let me tell you how I feel about Vroom and Reveroom. I love it. Vroom and Reveroom are some of the coolest things I've ever looked at. They're not that great. Don't get me wrong. They're not that great. But they're some of the coolest things I've ever looked at. I really love their design, and if I knew that where to get them earlier in the game, I would have added them to my team. I'm really sad that I did not get an opportunity to use a Reveroom. Tinkatink, Tinkatuff, and Tinkatun are really cool and unique. They're fairy steel types, which I actually really, really like as well. King Gambit, I think this is Iron Treads, I think is this one, and then Goldango. I think the answer is honestly quite simply obvious. I know you guys, again, might say, well, Vroom is worse, Reveroom is worse, but what is Orthworm? I think it's cool that it's a steel-type worm, but why do you exist? Generation. Oh, this is worst one. Okay, so what's the worst one? Well, guys, I trashed on it for a good 5 minutes in two different forms. It is obviously Mawile. Mawile should not have ever been created. The fact that this thing exists makes me cringe, and every single time I see it, I just think to myself, why did they add this into the game? What was the point of it? So that's going to do it. Those are the worst steel types in all of Pokemon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, make sure you hit the like button. And we have one more to go. Fairy typing is left. That'll be coming up tomorrow. I'll see you guys then.